Welcome back to the GameSpot stage here at E3 2016. Joining Tamora and myself on the couch now is Pete Hines from Bethesda.
Hello.
Hi. How do you think your showcase went down? We were edge of our seats here.
You know what? It seems like everybody liked it, but when you're up there doing it, like, you have no idea. I can't watch myself, so I haven't gone back to watch it to see like. I find myself annoying, so. But it sounds like you guys thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, Bethesda have, like, last year they pretty much started the precedent for starting with the showstopper. Like, last year was. It turned out to be the best of the press conferences.
Thank you.
And this year it's definitely up there. Like, you opened with Quake.
Quake Champions.
I mean, Quake Champions, and it's what people expected it to be. I know in here there was like, all right, it's Quake. It says Champions. Is this a MOBA? There was a little worry. People were like, oh god, they're doing a MOBA. And then you showed off what it actually was, and everyone went,
have a little faith.
Yeah. You know what it is? We've been hurt before.
Yeah,
we've been
you're
hurt before.
right. But I think we try and be pretty self-aware in terms of what we're about and what our franchises are about. And Wolfenstein made a nice transition from kind of falling off a little bit to Machine Games bringing it back and injecting a lot of life. And then Doom last month has gone over really well, and folks enjoying kind of taking the legacy of Doom and id and bringing it into the modern age, and Quake Champions is Tim being one of the co-creators of the original Quake, saying, look, I want to bring back all these things that people know and remember from Quake and bring it to present day PC shooter.
I think the most surprising thing was how quickly it came. Like, Doom just came out, and I mean, it follows Wolfenstein, which everyone really liked and it was critically acclaimed, but before Doom came out, there was a lot of talk about whether they could pull it off, whether Bethesda could pull it off, and then when it came out, everyone was like, oh wow, they really nailed it. Yeah. And that's when the discussion of like maybe they could do Quake started happening, and then you lot just came out and said, yep, here it is.
Bang,
like, when did this start happening? Like, when did you start thinking about Quake? And was like you had to have been confident going into it to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a risk there, right? I never felt like it would, but if Doom had face planted last month, well, the Quake announcement is kind of awkward because it's like, this game that everybody's like, oh, that wasn't very good and that wasn't very fun. It's kind of hard to get everybody excited. But we were banking on what happened, which is we think Doom's going to be really good. When people actually get to play it, they're going to see what this game is about and enjoy it. And we will have opened that door for Quake Champions to step in and say, and here's the the next thing, and to be able to sort of build on that momentum.
And just to clarify, like, who's involved in terms of developing the Quake project? Because I know for Doom, you guys did the single player internally, and then for multiplayer.
It was id single player, and then id working with Certain Affinity on multiplayer, and then id working with Escalation on the Snap map.
Yeah.
Tom and the folks at Escalation just did an unbelievable job with the Snap map stuff and making all that stuff work. So yeah, this is also some folks at id working with another team to kind of bring some of those resources, because as you said, Doom was a pretty big deal, and now id is taking on a lot of the multiplayer aspects, along with some of the folks from Battlecry Studios in Austin, bringing some more resources. One of the things that Marty's talked about is really wanting to dedicate time this summer, and he talked about it some in his video, to improving and bringing more stuff to multiplayer to make that multiplayer experience even better and expand the Snap map as well. So it's there's a lot going on at that studio, but we're excited where it's headed.
I guess the obviously Doom is an excellent game, but a lot of the kind of talk about multiplayer is that it leaves people a little wanting because it's not quite consistent with the single player experience. So there's some fears that I've seen online that the last multiplayer game that Bethesda worked on and it worked on has kind of like floundered a bit. Like, there's a worry that will that transfer over to Quake? Like, is it?
They're very different. They're very different things. And again, I think it's a fair criticism. I think id and those guys will be the first to tell you that they think there's a far better version of Doom multiplayer than what there is today. and they're dedicated to getting the game to that point, and that's part of our commitment to not just DLC but free content, adding new modes, adding new functionality to get the multiplayer there to the point where folks are like, okay, this is really good. Yeah. But Quake Champions is its own separate set of challenges. You know, I mean, it's 120 hertz unlocked frame rate on a PC. It's a whole different beast. If you want fast vertical, that's Quake Champions in a nutshell.
So what kind of gameplay experience are you gonna go for? Because obviously Doom, its success is based on really taking out the kind of things that we've come to expect from shooters and going back to what we remember shooters being. In terms of Quake Champions, is it a case of doing the same thing and presenting a Quake multiplayer experience that's in line with what we remember, or are you planning to use like modern, gameplay innovations such as?
No, I think it's going to be a current take on classic Quake gameplay and adding in this a bit more in this idea of champions, this idea of having different characters that you can choose, and each one has a different ability they bring, but ultimately it's about really fast gameplay, the kind of arenas and maps that you're used to in a Quake game, that speed of movement, super fast, twitchy controls, all of those things you remember from Quake is Quake Champions.
But Quake wasn't the only surprise you had at your showcase this year. We saw Arcane's reimagining of Prey. So how long has that been under wraps in its current form?
A long time, a while. As Raf said, look, after Dishonored, Harvey and the team in Lyon started on Dishonored 2, and Raf started work on a new project for them, something that he wanted to. Arcane has been around for a long time. They're very well known for Dishonored, but you guys know they've been making stuff for a long time, and he wanted to have that studio working on more than one thing, and had this idea of taking the thing that they're known for, which is immersive first-person games, but bringing it to a different style of game. And so they've been working on it for a couple of years now, at least. Yeah.
And was it a case of taking what Prey 2 was before, and kind of
absolutely not. They
threw it out from the start.
There is not a single element of Prey 2 in this game other than aliens running amok and you're being hunted by aliens. Like that, Prey is distilling down literally the franchise to that core element, and then Arcane building it back up to this is how we imagine it. This is what we think it is.
Right. And how would you kind of, obviously we don't want to pigeonhole it, but like how would you characterize the kind of game? Is it a horror game? Is it a psychological?
Definitely not a horror game. I mean, it's got a psychological element to it. You see hints of some of that in the trailer here, but it's an immersive first-person action game shooter. It's a systems-based game that Arcane is known for. They're known for creating really well-realized worlds where everything isn't just tangible, but has there's logic and reason behind it. There's a reason why this space station is the way it is that you find yourself on. There's a reason for the ecology of the aliens that you see and are fighting and trying to survive. It's about a lot of player choice. How are you going to deal with any of these situations that you're thrown in front? It's not an open world game, but it's that same sort of open level game like you see with Dishonored, where you can't go wherever you want at any given moment, but you've got a lot of freedom for sort of what you're going to do next and how you're going to approach it. And there's a whole bunch of different.
And can you backtrack in places that you've been before?
Yeah.
Would there be different experiences?
It's going to offer a lot of replayability and a lot of rewarding exploration. Because, again, remember, this is a game where you're stuck on a space station, and so you've got to make do with the resources you have. And depending on the way that you're playing, there may be certain areas that you want to go to because there's a specific resource you need or a specific objective you want to achieve that somebody else playing a different way doesn't care at all about. And QuakeCon's less than 2 months away. Can't wait for the guys to be able to show more about what they're up to.
Was there any trepidation, because obviously it's a quite similar premise to Alien Isolation? stuck on a spaceship. Maybe less of the psychological angles.
It's a fair point. I mean, at a fundamental level, aliens on space station, absolutely. But I think when folks see what
even Dead Space, but
but I think once folks see what the game is really about and what that sort of minute-to-minute gameplay looks like, they're going to be like, yep, I get it. I get how all the elements fit. There's definitely a psychological element. There are definitely parts of the game that scare the hell out of me, but it's not a horror game. It's because of the aliens and how they work, and just those moments of, am I going to fight here? Am I going to flee here? How am I going to?
I guess the thing, looking at it, it does look like you said. It's distilling Prey down to its very essence, aliens on a spaceship, which begs the question: why even call it Prey? Like, you could have put this out there as a brand new IP, and
we could have
kind of garnered praise for doing that, but you decided to stick with Prey, not Prey 2, but like Prey again and reboot. What was the thinking behind that?
I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how to distill down months and years of conversations around that, but ultimately, it felt like the right fit for the kind of game that they were going to make, and what it is they wanted to do.
Okay.
You also revealed Skyrim Special Edition. So, I mean, what was the thought process behind? I mean, obviously, we all love Skyrim. I've put far too many hours into that game, but it's fairly recent. Why was this the one that got the remaster and maybe not Morrowind or Oblivion?
Sure. I mean, it's fairly recent. It is 5 years old.
But then again, Dishonored was only 3 years ago when it got
although Dishonored, the remaster for that was more about, well, it was the last new IP we released for the last generation of consoles, so it was a timeliness of being able to bring it to this generation. With Skyrim, it was, we get asked about it a ton, and it felt like it's still a lot of work left to do to get this onto the current gen, so there is a time factor there. Morrowind is 2 generations ago, so that would have been, I mean, a much more massive undertaking and taken a significant amount of time. I mean, at that point, you're probably basically remaking the game from the start with how much you'd have to throw out and do all over again. We just felt like Skyrim is a great fit, that folks kept asking about it, that the amount of content there from a mod standpoint in the PC community, and what those modders would then be able to bring over to the console folks, felt like a good fit. So, look, I mean, I played a ton of Skyrim at home, and I can't wait to play this when it comes out, even though I've been playing it forever, since, well before launch.
I'm getting itchy fingers again, like watching the gameplay.
That music gets me every time. I still like hearing it. So
Bethesda also revealed Bethesda VR. So you guys are pretty much one of the big publishers to make a real big push into VR, a real commitment. So you've had the Doom experience that's not going to be transferred into the full game?
Yeah. Playing a game at 60 frames a second, like
bit
Doom,
zippy.
It's a vomit comet. Like, it is literally just put the bucket next to the headset and wait about 10 seconds. So it needs to be a different kind of game, a different kind of experience. What we've got today is sort of, during the show, is an idea, a direction, some thoughts around what that might be, and showing off some of the tech and what it looks like. Whereas Fallout is just the game. It's Fallout 4. I mean, it's VR controls. Still, I mean, it's not coming out till next year, so there's still a lot of work and thinking around how all of that's going to work. But it's a first look at what a full Fallout 4 game would look like on a VR platform.
So the demo on the show floor at the moment is you don't necessarily walk around so much. You teleport between places.
In this build, you're not walking place to place. You're sort of figuring out where you want to go to next, but that's part of figuring out how that looks when the game ships. I genuinely have no idea.
Okay.
Is it just on the HTC Vive, or are there talks
right
with
now?
Oculus
We're just announced for the HTC Vive. Whether we would do this for anything else, any other platform, all things are possible. But right now, it's just for the HTC Vive next year.
Cool. Another quick one. We only have less than a minute left.
Okay.
But Fallout DLC. This is going to be. You've announced 3? 3 today.
So we're in beta testing this week on contraptions. That'll be out next week. So that adds a bunch of new gadgets and gizmos to add to the workshop. Next month is Build Your Own Vault and recruit vault dwellers and run experiments on them and all that stuff. And then August is Nuka World,
Right.
A bigger area, adds a new faction to the game.
Like a dystopian Disneyland.
Yeah.
Yeah, very dystopian. But we'll be talking about that probably a little bit further down the road, but kind of excited for what that brings from a gameplay standpoint. And then PS4 mods still planning on coming out this month. So they're out on Xbox One. We're almost done with the work we need to do on PS4, so that'll bring a bunch of new content from all the great mod creators to play on PS4.
Was there a vast difference in bringing like different challenges with bringing to PS4?
Like every single platform has different ways of handling all of these things, and when you're talking about bringing something created on a PC and having it work on a console, and all of the sort of rules for how it behaves, and what do you do if they just rip the Lord of the Rings assets and drop them in there, and all of that stuff has to be managed and figured out.
Will I be able to get Macho Man Randy Savage?
Everybody asked that. I think I'm going to have to personally reach out to...
Please do.
Send an email.
To those folks and say, can we please have permission for this modder to put up this thing? Because it's, I think, the number
it needs
one
to be in there.
request.
That and Thomas the Tank.
I was going to say, and that's number 2.
Yep.
Macho Man and Thomas the Tank
And
Engine.
Thomas.
After E3, those will be the first 2 emails I send.
You have the power.
Yes. I will make that happen.
Thank you.
Pete, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
When is QuakeCon, so we can find out more details about Prey?
First of August, Dallas, Texas. We're gonna be showing new info on Quake Champions. We're gonna have new info on Prey. Probably more info on upcoming Doom DLC, Nuka World. I'm sure we'll be talking about more there. So definitely, we need to get you guys down to Texas.
Yeah. Book our flights.
Come join us. Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
it sorted. All right, thank you so much. Guys, for more coverage from this year's E3, make sure you stay tuned, of course, to GameSpot.com.
You're watching the GameSpot stage, brought to you by Airheads.